and thanks for joining us this week on Agenda 2030. I am Toyin Nkamian John. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development envisions a present and future that is economically sustainable, socially inclusive, and environmentally resilient. This is expressed through the framing of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. Nigeria has been taking concrete steps to deliver on the targets of the goals with huge positive milestones. On today's episode, we will be bringing to you reports from Nigeria's preparation for the 2020 United Nations High-Level Political Forum. Do stay with us.
Agenda 2030. As a successor framework for the Millennium Development Goals, the global community rolled out a bigger, deeper, and more encompassing framework called the Sustainable Development Goals, designed to transform our world, lift the poor out of poverty, as well as ensure inclusive and healthy society. On Agenda 2030, we take you on a media trip to the global destination of the future we want. With everyone on board, we focus on the people and their struggle, the civil society and their agitations, the government and her development effort, the global development agenda, its 17 goals and 169 targets. We bring you all the deliberations, insightful conversations, and high-level partnerships on the road to global destination. Agenda 2030, showing on this channel. Agenda 2030, leaving no one behind.
As part of the monitoring and evaluation process of the implementation of the SDGs, countries are required to submit national voluntary review on SDGs to the United Nations High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development. In 2017, Nigeria was one of the few countries that made a presentation to the United Nations HLPF and is expected to make another presentation in 2020. As part of the preparations for the presentation of the review, the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs, in collaboration with the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, and the Ministry of Budget and National Planning, recently organized a 5-day capacity building workshop for monitoring and evaluation officers across the ministries, departments, and agencies of government.
3 years into the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, global leaders are scaling up activities aimed at accelerating the attainment of the goals. Evidence-based reports on performance are also being generated and presented through the National Voluntary Review on SDGs mechanism to the United Nations High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development. In realizing this, periodic reporting and proper tracking of the progress is key. It was against this background that the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs recently embarked on the capacity building workshop for monitoring and evaluation of officers across the ministries, departments, and agencies of government. The training, which was organized in collaboration with the United Nations Children's Education Fund, UNICEF, and the Federal Ministry of Budget and National Planning, is a follow-up to the Pan-African Evaluation Capacity Building Forum held in Addis Ababa in 2018 and seeks to strengthen the process for evidence-based reporting for the National Voluntary Review report that will be presented to the United Nations by the Nigerian government in 2020. It was also targeted at strengthening the capacities of the officers that will be involved in the country-led impact evaluation of specific SDGs. According to the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs, Princess Adejoke Orilokwe Adefulire, the capacity building workshop was a foundation-laying process for an independent and credible evaluation of priority SDGs in Nigeria. She added that Nigeria is prioritizing 5 key goals from where 1 or 2 will be selected for review at the United Nations High-Level Political Forum in New York. The 5 priority SDGs include Goal 1, end poverty and all its forms. Goal 3, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. Goal 4, ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Goal 5, achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Goal 8, promote sustained, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment and decent work for all. As was noted at the event, the purpose of the independent evaluation of SDGs is to ensure solid evidence-based learning and reporting that will provide solid analytical answers to the why and how of challenges against key priority SDGs to be addressed within large strategic debate and consensual agreement.
The purpose of this meeting is to provide the M&E focal points and the directors of evaluation and several governmental agencies with a more in-depth understanding, not just of the voluntary national review processes, but also foremost of the methodologies and the methods in evaluation that you could use to measure the progress of the Nigerian government and all its components and entities at the governmental level, at the federal level, and at the state level with respect to the Sustainable Development Goals. In particular, as a regional evaluation advisor and an evaluation specialist, I've been asked to contribute to this workshop, making sure that the foundational principles, the definitions of tools in evaluation would be clearly understood by the participants. Because one of the major outcomes of the meeting will be to develop one or two terms of reference for an evaluation of SDGs. This is the first time that a country in Africa is actually committed to evaluating SDGs. There's been a lot of monitoring and a lot of reporting about the progress of countries towards the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals, but no one has done it from an evaluative perspective. So nobody has gone into the details of why and why not a country is actually attaining or getting close to the attainment of a Sustainable Development Goals. And nobody has ever used specific methodologies or specific methods in evaluation to really understand whether what's being done right now is worthwhile, has some merit of some worth.
Nigeria will be the champion. It's the first country in Africa to do an independent evaluation for this high-level policy and global agenda. It will help the government of Nigeria to deliver credible report for strategic debate and for policy advocacy when they will attend, when they will participate to the high-level political forum in New York in 2020. So the objective was to come here with the team to strengthen understanding of all stakeholders, line ministry, academic institution, the SDG office, all associations, to understand what is the meaning of evaluation, those key concepts, how to mainstream evaluation to strengthen, voluntary national report that Nigeria will develop in 2020.
We've commissioned and completed a number of independent evaluations over the last few years. So my role's been just to fill in some of the technical details about how we've gone about that at a program level to allow the participants to think about how some of those approaches and techniques might apply to the work they're thinking about in terms of evaluating one or two of the Sustainable Development Goals. So it's a kind of technical input from my side, really, and the direction and the sense of it is to be shaped by Nigeria, as it's Nigeria's voluntary national review.
The organizers are optimistic that the workshop will, among other things, develop and reinforce evaluation culture within the public sector, as well as enhance the capacity of participants in the design, methodologies, management, and delivery of high-quality report for use.
Policymakers, of course, are expected to base their decision on evidence. But however, the reverse is always the case. In most of the time, we take decisions just haphazardly based on guesswork and without making any recourse to available facts and figures. And so the link here is quality statistics, of course, provide what we call evidence, because these are required to work for you to take decisions, for you to develop and, of course, monitor policies and make interventions where necessary. And that precisely is the role that the SDG office is expected to play, to use evidence to actually see where are interventions actually needed. Is it in the health sector? And in the health sector, in what area? Is it HIV? Is it malaria? And so that is quite very, very important.
The Millennium Development Goals, we had them 18 number, which were mainly trying to address social and socio-economic challenges, from fighting extreme poverty and hunger to reducing, achieving primary education, combating HIV/AIDS, malaria and other diseases, reducing child mortality, improving maternal health, combating HIV/AIDS, malaria and other diseases, achieving environmental sustainability, and then the global partnership for development. These were the 8 sustainable Millennium Development Goals. But did countries achieve all of them? No. The outcomes were mixed, and therefore the SDGs needed to take that agenda forward. So the 3 dimensions of the Sustainable Development Goals, which we get to discuss, we have 17, like I've mentioned, starting from zero, no poverty, zero hunger, down to the global partnership for the SDGs.
Participants particularly hinted that their understanding on the relevance of effective evaluation mechanisms to the strengthening of SDGs reporting in Nigeria has been enhanced.
The purpose of this capacity building is to build our knowledge and to mainstream 5 priority goals of the SDG and look how we can evaluate them and make a report. Evaluation of those priority goals we're looking at is mainly going to be the first in Nigeria, and not just Nigeria, in Africa at large, since the inception of the SDG 3 years ago. And the essence of this workshop is to build the capacity of key MDAs who will be partaking in the evaluation process. So this is just the beginning for the evaluation process for us.
My experience from this workshop is a capacity building workshop on sustainable development goals, on how to generate evidence-based data for us to track progress and reports on SDG indicators in Nigeria. Most especially, it will help us in our next report of National Voluntary Report 2019.
Implementing a huge program like the SDGs, I mean, you need to put the right mechanisms in place to ensure that from time to time you evaluate. Evaluate with the intention to ascertain, are you making progress? And if you're making progress, what are the real evidence? And if you have challenges, how do you move forward? You know, so basically that is one of the objectives of this workshop.
Issues of monitoring and evaluation are critical issues for development. And there are issues, that requires a lot of capacity building, because monitoring and evaluation are technical processes, that has, a lot of scientific component that needs to be understood, and requires, a strong, capacity building. And I believe this kind, of training will definitely expose and build more the existing capacity, of the stakeholders that are involved, so that, apart from even supporting the SDG evaluation, the capacity that is obtained will assist, all other stakeholders to be able to implement more an effective national, and an effective, monitoring evaluation system, within their respective organizations. And as you can see, several organizations are involved here. So this workshop is really groundbreaking in the sense that, especially with regard to the evaluation, which is something that has been weak. So we believe, after this workshop, a lot of people will have a clear and grasp of what evaluation is all about, what it intends to do, and how to engage and conduct, successful evaluation, which is really the objective, of the workshop, using SDG as a case study.
We've been able to interact on so many aspects of the types of evaluation and evaluation approaches towards understanding how we're going to monitor and evaluate the SDGs for Nigeria to form part of our voluntary national review reporting to the UN body and other international agencies that will be in attendance during the next round of the VNR presentations for Africa and some other nations.
All the lectures that have been delivered basically on evaluation has given me an in-depth understanding of how evaluation should go. Normally we do a shallow evaluation, but from the lectures I've learned, it has been an eye-opener for me, a very in-depth lecture on how to carry out evaluation exercises for any project so far.
I've learned so much, especially, from the experiences being shared from people from other countries, especially the one that was delivered by the UNICEF evaluation advisor for Central and West Africa. He brought in so much ideas and dynamics to the issue of evaluation, and also from that of the DFID on what they have been able to do, what they've been able to achieve so far. And I could say going ahead, because we are also planning to do an evaluation. I'm telling you, the lot that has been learned today, it will surely assist us, especially in the department, to carry out the evaluation. Most especially, we'll do it effectively and efficiently.
I want to thank the coordinators and all those people that organize this program, because as I'm here, I really appreciate what they have done, because I can click on some points there about the monitoring and the evaluation.
Nigeria will continue to support the United Nations in all its efforts, including the attainment of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. I thank you.
Agenda 2030, showing on this channel. Agenda 2030, leaving no one behind.
Let's now join my colleague Desmond Utonwe as we bring you the interview he had with Ada Ocampo, the Senior Evaluation Specialist in UNICEF. Take a listen.
Hello, welcome to Agenda 2030. And on this segment of the program, I'm having a very distinguished guest. Ada Ocampo is a UNICEF advisor on evaluation. She came all the way from New York, and she'll be talking to us about evaluation of the SDGs, especially as Nigeria prepared to work on another version of the National Voluntary Report that will be presented to the high-level political forum of the United Nations. Welcome on board.
I'm delighted to be in Nigeria for the first time. I am delighted to see how UNICEF Nigeria is supporting the efforts of the government and of the entire country to be accountable and transparent in reporting the extent to which the country is progressing towards the SDGs. This workshop is a historical workshop because this is the first country in the Global South actually preparing for evaluations of the SDGs, leading towards generating evidence to report in their voluntary national review in 2020 that will be presented to the high-level political forum. I was amazed to see how some brief orientations led to 3 groups mapping the SDGs, selecting selecting one SDGs, their interconnections to others, and developing terms of references for evaluations that will take place soon. This is an example to other countries. This is an example for the entire Global South and also for the North. As mentioned before, Nigeria is the first country that will be doing country-led evaluations to determine the progress of the country towards the SDG. We are living a historical moment here, and I would take advantage to really sincerely congratulate Nigeria for the efforts the country is undertaking, leading in this process towards evaluating the SDGs.
Okay, you want to tell us why this evaluation of the SDGs is very important to the implementation of the global agenda?
It's a very good question. There are 2 principles, among others, I would like to highlight, 2 principles that underpin good governance. And those are accountability and transparency. So evaluation is aimed at contributing to these two principles. To governments, to civil societies, to citizens in general, not only to remain accountable, but to demonstrate accountability and to do it in a transparent way. So evaluation is a means towards demonstrating that the country is progressing towards the results, towards achieving goals the country has committed to achieve. Countries have endorsed the 2030 Agenda, and by endorsing the 2030 Agenda, they have committed to really work towards achieving the goals. How can we know that the countries are achieving the goals? Only with the numbers? Not only, because if we just rely on numbers, we will be following exactly the mistakes we did in the past with the MDGs, when the reporting towards the SDGs was only numbers and even gross numbers. In the MDGs, although it was a step forward, we couldn't know the reasons behind the numbers. And evaluation provides the opportunity to analyze, to interpret what the figures as they are. To analyze why the disparities between the country average and the subnational average, between different groups of organizations, of actors in society, those more advantaged, those marginalized, why the disparities are as they are. So evaluation provides us an opportunity not only to reach hard evidence and to document it, but to analyze the causes, the reasons behind the numbers, to understand the why of the numbers and what can we do to improve the situation we are facing now in order to actually reach the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. Important to mention that the evaluation also provides the opportunity to analyze whether the country is complying with the principle of no one left behind of the 2030 Agenda. And for that, there are two goals that we have discussed during this week that are cross-cutting. So whatever SDGs are chosen to be evaluated, they have to have this cross-cutting lens that SDG 5, gender equality, and SDG 10, reducing inequalities, provide the opportunity to demonstrate the reduction of disparities in a country.
The part of the program, part of the activities that you embark on this very trip is the streamlining to 5 goals from where you eventually took, I think, 3 of the goals. Initially it was goal 1, goal 3, 4, 5, and 8.
Yes.
And eventually you've moved to goal 1, 3, and 4. All right. How important are these goals? What would you say these goals are, the attainment of this goal to every other goal in the general framework?
The goals that have been chosen are extremely important. We start with goal 1, reducing poverty, right? Reducing poverty is a multidimensional goal. We cannot say that we will reduce poverty just by by increasing income. The multidimensionality of poverty implies economical aspects, social aspects, implies access to education, quality of education, access to water and sanitation, to health services. It's multidimensional. Therefore, I would say that reduction of poverty, if taken in this multiple dimension way, it's an overarching goal. And therefore, its complexity by default means the interaction with other SDGs, and that's extremely important. Extremely important, especially for countries from the south that we come from. We are now in Nigeria. I come from Peru, where it's also a country from the south, a developing country. Reduction in poverty has to be one of the most important goals we also should aim to achieve. The other goal that was chosen is goal number 3, that has to do with health. health is also important, and within health the group has determined that they will focus on children and maternal health. That is also a very important area if we want really to progress in a country, to focus on those aspects of health and overall access to health. And the other goal that was chosen is education. That is also multidimensional. It's also multidimensional, and these three have an equality and sustainability component, because poverty is transmitted generation by generation. And that has repercussions in education, in access to health, quality of education, quality of health, and in the overall progress of a country. So these are three important pillars. The other two goals that were discussed were gender equality, which is a very, very important goal. However, because of its nature of being cross-cutting, has now been incorporated in the other three that were selected. And the other one was decent work. I think that decent work is extremely important, and if we are able to assess these three first, probably in the second round decent work will come. I am really happy with the discussions and with the way the groups proceeded to select the goals and with the actual selection. I think that it couldn't have gone better. I'm really impressed and really happy and really excited to participate even from distance in these evaluations and to be part of this historical movement.
And so it has been an interesting session with Ada Ocampo, Advisor Evaluation Units in UNICEF. And we'll take you back to the studio for more on Agenda 2030. Do stay with us.
And that's our package for the week. Remember, you can always watch the program and other episodes by subscribing to our YouTube channels on youtube.com/FreshNewsTV and youtube.com/Agenda2030TV. You can also watch the program live on Facebook. Just log on to www.facebook.com/FreshNewsNG and www.facebook.com/Agenda2030TV. Follow us on all our social media platforms at Agenda 2030 TV on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Remember to drop your comments and share with your contacts. Do use the hashtag Agenda 2030 and the hashtag Agenda 2030 TV. Thank you very much for being part of the program this week. We will see you again next week. I am Tony Nkamiang John saying bye.